It's honestly the same thing with running. When you find the right recipe for you, that not only leads to success, like success is great, but like that leads to like happiness and joy and leaning in with more curiosity versus fear. Don't stray for that and stand up for it. I think if you're, a pro runner trying to find a contract or a team or a company to work with, don't change yourself to fit the mold that's there. Same with like finding the right college team. Same with finding a high school coach. And it's so hard to know the younger you are because you spend so much time as you grow as an athlete and a person, like knowing, what makes you tick and what makes you you.
That was Jess McClain back today on the Running Effect podcast. Jess has been on the podcast a few times to document and tell her story. And so today is just a conversation catching up over the last few months where Jess has had a dominant year thus far. She was the top American female at the Boston Marathon, and then she got selected to run in the 2025 World Championships in Tokyo, Japan last month, where she placed 8th in the world in marathon, which was remarkable. And we talk a lot about her journey in the sport, her training, her mindset, why she is a little bit of a lower mileage girl, but enjoys combining speed and strength and what that actually looks like. There are a lot of good training insights in this one. We also talk about her build up to 2028, how she's approaching it physically, mentally, all those good stuff. I'll keep this intro short. If you enjoy it, share the podcast with a friend. That's the easiest way in which we can grow word of mouth marketing. Give us a 5-star review. It takes 5 seconds to do so, and hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss another episode. And without further ado, enjoy this insightful conversation with recent World Championships 8th place finisher, Jess McClain. Jess McClain, welcome back to the Running Effect podcast. How are you doing this morning?
I'm so good. Better now. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. We've covered real estate and a million topics before starting out. So this is like podcast round 2, but actually on the record.
I love it.
How are you feeling? Tell the people what you've gone through recently.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Thanks for asking. For all the female listeners out there, and I guess male listeners too, that might go through this or talk about it with partners one day. I decided to freeze my eggs 2 days after getting back from Japan. I competed in the World Championships in the marathon, and then got home on a Wednesday and started all my doctor's appointments and stuff. And the whole egg freezing hormone injection process started on a Saturday. So I went through that and then ended up having, unfortunately, some what started to be minor complications, and they turned out to be pretty bad. So I'm on the other side of that now. I've had 3 weeks kind of going through all this, but we're back running and eggs are on ice. So 2028 is kind of my main focus for the foreseeable future. But yeah, it's been something that, I'm 33 and my husband and I have been married for almost 4 years, and we're both kind of in the grindy. We were just talking about this offline, but in the grindy phase of life, and we're kind of loving it. And we love coming home and just cooking dinner every night and hanging out and going to bed and doing it all over again. That's kind of where we're at. And I love running right now, so I don't want to stop. Yeah.
I want to bring us back to 2 years ago, because I think if I had a conversation with you, one, you probably would have been shocked that someone wanted to do a podcast with you, because I think you were still underneath the shadows. And
I was.
2, I think we're kind of in that final stage potentially of your running career where you were questioning, okay, is the Olympic trials going to be my last race? Is running, something I can do at a decently high level while, prioritizing my career and work with nonprofits. And you were kind of undergoing all these questions. Well, you have this day in Orlando where you place 4th. We've documented that. A lot of other people have documented that. Everything kind of changes. And your most recent race was the World Championships, which qualifying for in and of itself is a remarkable accomplishment. But then you place 8th at the whole dang thing. And now your perspective, as you kind of just shared there a little bit with life decisions, is kind of radically shifted because of that one race and that one moment. How crazy is it? Go back 2 years ago, October 2023. She probably wouldn't believe any of this.
No.
Or would she?
Actually, I don't know. I guess this time 2 years ago, I would have been kind of just getting into my Orlando build with my friends here in my training group and working. It's the busiest quarter for the nonprofits that I work with. We do a ton of really fun events for foster kiddos and large scale adoption events for rescue dogs. So I I love my job, two passions of mine for sure. So yeah, I was just kind of doing a little bit of everything, getting into the holiday season. I'm in Phoenix. My family lives here. So I just feel like I finally struck a balance with everything around that time. A year prior to that, though, I actually, in 2022, was my last major injury. I had a sacral stress fracture in November. So I think I was like almost a year into being completely healthy, really investing in my body and just having a ton of fun with running. And I think that was a testament to how Orlando went. I kind of went in, as you said, like thinking I wanted to make it to an Olympic trials both times in 2016 and 2020. And both times, I was either hurt or got knocked out of my sails with COVID and just kind of dabbled in other realms of life in 2020. So I just wanted to get to Orlando and enjoy like every minute and every mile. And I did. I had so much fun and didn't train like bonkers crazy for it. Had a solid workout a week, a solid long run, but was probably running 40 to 50 miles a week, maybe hitting 60 like once or twice. So yeah, when I crossed the finish line in fourth,
Wait, you're telling me you ran like 50 miles a week in your build up to
yeah, I
placing?
think honestly, I think
Wow.
for Orlando, actually, I may have hit 70 a few times, but I think the buildups, like I was running not too many miles. I probably averaged, if I looked back at my logs, which I think getting better at logging around then, maybe averaged like 62 to 65, but I probably hit like upwards of 72 and then, like the lower end 50. Yeah, so I wasn't running a ton. And I think honestly, like my body just thrives in this like zone of marathon training and these paces. And since then I've fine tuned. I have a coach now, and we're hitting different ends of the spectrum now in different ways. But I'm like theoretically a lower mileage marathoner. I don't think I've hit anything higher than 84 in the last year, and that's only like once or twice that's happened. So I just found what works for me, and I don't try to force anything, and I just really listen to my body. But that's taken literally 2 or 3 years to do at this level again. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind of 2 years, but it's been like so much fun. I've had like the best time of my life running. It's been cool to like be back in Phoenix, feeling just like I did as like a high schooler, bopping around on the canals and the golf courses, and uh, yeah, it just feels like fun and play, and I'm just more joyful and not as fearful and stressed out about it all. So yeah, we're in a good spot.
It seems like you care more about your running than you ever have before, while also caring way less about your running than you
Yeah.
ever have before, even though those things contradict each other.
No, that's a good way to put it. I think the big things, the basics, and like the nuts and bolts, and I care about like just getting the miles in, getting the work in, and not dissecting every split and every like data point. Like I wear a Garmin watch, the most basic like forerunner model, which just gives me like time, distance, heart rate, what I need. And I'm not psycho about it. I used to be like, oh my God, I would be off 2 reps and then I'd be so stressed mid workout that then, I would derail everything. And I'm just so much about like, hey, if the workout's done, it's a brick and we're stacking it. And I think it's been so like a lot of stress has been alleviated with just my mindset now. And I think I've kind of been able to apply that to different, like my job and everything else, which has been really good for me. As a type A person who likes to control everything in life, it's just not possible. So perfectionism has kind of been like my worst enemy up until now. And I think it's just like, if the work is done, it's good, and if a race doesn't go quite to plan, like I have now that we're a decent ways away from Japan, like I've reflected a ton on it and I've learned a ton from that race. I really wanted top 5. Like podium was like A goal, top 5 was B goal. So yeah, but like coming away from Japan, I'm like never in my wildest dreams. I think I'd be leading a world championship with my Brooks teammate, for as long as we did. And that was really cool. And yeah, I think in life, I've just learned to let go a little bit, as you said, while still like holding things tight, but not as tight as I used to. And it's been good. I think it's been good for me.
Yeah, it's like you can care about something deeply, but you can also have a level of detachment. And Andy Weeding said a quote to me a few years ago, probably at this point on the podcast, that I think is one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard. And he said, running is something you do, it's not who you are. And so I
Yeah.
think if we view running as just like literally an activity that we do, just like if we had a bad, I don't know, math class back in the day in high school, you were kind of quickly on to the next thing until you had to approach math class the next day and then maybe you'd remember it
Mhm.
again. And it's the same thing with running where it's like, yeah, I mean, it does get more nuanced when it is your profession, but even you there have carved out, other things in your life that it's like somewhat your profession, but it's not everything. And so
Yeah.
yeah, it matters to you because you care deeply about it, but it's not who you are and the people that truly care about you. Whether you DNF'd or won Tokyo, they would still love you at the end of the day.
Yeah, the people in my life make a point to say that, the ones that whose opinions I really care about and who I want to make proud. And um, yeah, it's good to go into a race knowing that all I need to do is do my best and enjoy it and lean into the moments where it gets hard and don't face those moments with so much fear, more so than like curiosity and being interested about what happens on the other side of it if I just hang on for another mile or a few minutes or whatever it is. Yeah, exactly.
You're humble, so you might not accept this, but I will state it from my pulpit here on the podcast. I think you're probably the top American female in my mind in the marathon, or at least very close to it. Just with no, just with recent performances. I mean, eighth in the world, and then top American at Boston, and you know if you do stocks or I don't sports gamble, but like I know people who do. The principles are you bet on trajectory over like current results, and your trajectory again over the past 2 years is just remarkable. What I'm fascinated by is like bridging the gap between 2 years ago where you were
Yeah.
just kind of doing your thing in Phoenix by yourself, sometimes running only 40 miles a week, to now at least there's a conversation to be had for the passionate fans that you potentially are the top American female marathoner, or at least people would bet on you going into a major. How crazy is that to you
Mhm.
that that's now your reality?
Well, gosh, thanks. I feel like, I definitely view myself as one of the top American female marathoners. I feel like there's a few women who I haven't had like the pleasure to really line up with and I'd love to race and test myself against in the US. Uh, but no, my biggest thing I think over the last few races and at least the world marathon majors is like be consistent. And I think that goes to show too for Japan. It was like I could have done what I've always done, hang back in the second pack, be conservative through the first 13 to 16, and then try to pick people off over the course of the last, half or 8 or 10 miles. When Susanna made the move out of the pack to just get out because there was so much jostling and oscillating and pacing going on, I don't know why my gut instinct was like, go with her. And I have not kind of like leaned into that kind of strategy yet. That was not the strategy going into Tokyo, but it just felt right in the moment. And it was just like it's interesting reflecting on it because yeah, like had I hung back kind of like Julia did and just stayed steady and did less work and then just really work on eyes up and picking people off over the course of the back half, yeah, maybe I would have podiumed or maybe I would have gotten fifth or top five. But it's cool to be now in the position where like I've been top 10 every major or championship race that I've raced in. And I think it's cool to see like, okay, I've done it a few different ways now and I've been able to come in top 8. So perhaps my strategy, like the best strategy lies somewhere in the middle where like, um, you know, the top athletes kind of make a move early on. Maybe I can go with them or just respond to moves a little bit earlier on than I have in like Boston or New York, where I kind of let him go. So yeah, it's been really cool. I don't think Orlando Jess would have known that we would have kept going and been able to say we're a top 10 competitor. New York, Boston, and Tokyo. So it's very cool. I think there's going to be some up and comers, like younger marathoners, that are going to hit the scene and be major contenders in 2028. So it's going to be very fun to see how the sport evolves too.
I'll take the veteran with the experience over the newcomer, bright-eyed.
Oh.
But
hey, I was a newcomer in 2024. So
that is true. That is true. And it's funny because even back then, like, you were unsponsored. I remember our first conversation, I think you had just signed with Brooks or were about to. And even that was like a big deal for you of like, oh, I'm like re-entering into like the professional sphere. This feels weird. I guess between now and 2028, what are your goals? Because if the race was held in a few months, I'm sure you would feel decently confident about your chance to make a team. And so what things do you feel like you need to improve on or touch on or simply do within the sport to keep enjoying it all the way until 2028, which I don't know, it could probably be here before I know it, but it is also a ways away.
Yeah, I think a lot of the goals remain the same. I think remaining as injury free as possible, like having as little hiccups and unplanned time away from training is the top goal. Because with the marathon, it's like I think I'm just reaping the benefits of the last 2 or 3 years that I've stacked now. Who's to say what that will look like in 2028 if I can stay healthy from now on? But with the majors that I'll run over the next few years, like I want to be as close to that podium as I can be. Top American spot is nice and shiny, but I think I need to start thinking beyond that a little bit more. It'd be fun to test myself in, like a flatter race, like a Chicago or a Valencia or something where I've never really chased a time. It's been more so about competing, which I think it has been good for me up until now, just focusing on, just tactics and strategy and racing over just time trialing. So yeah, I think there's a few fun goals like the 10K. I'm going to stay on the track and try to get as close to, as under that 31 mark, a little bit more than I have this past year, and maybe as close to that 15 flat or under it mark in the 5K. I think just maintaining and touching the systems of, the shorter races and speed and training has been really good for the marathon. And I think had I hung back in Tokyo and been able to kind of like showcase the speed I have, I think I may have run the speed out of my legs a little bit, running the way I did in Tokyo. But that's the one thing I'm like, man, if I felt good at the end of Tokyo, like where could I finish? Because I know my finishing speed is just so good right now. And I'm getting older, so I feel like 2028 is going to be like that perfect, time of my life where that will still be there for a little bit longer. Yeah, I think a lot of the goals remain the same, honestly. I just want to run more majors, top 5, podium, probably still hit the track for US champs and stuff like that. But yeah, we'll see. I'm not too, we'll talk about 2028 here and there, but it's at the back of my mind. I want to make the team, but it's not going to be something I'm like writing on my mirror every day up until, February, whatever day it is. So yeah, it's obvious that I want to make that team, and we're going to do whatever is best working backwards from that.
How do you know when to hang it up? Like in your mind, obviously 2028 is far away, but in your mind, in your fairy tale world, is it like I win the trials and then I get a medal and then I retire and ride off into the sun? Or is it, 2028 is when I do everything I think I can, and then that's like the round 3 evolution 3 and I just keep going until the merit? Because this is a conversation across all sports I'm fascinated by. It's like,
totally,
look, it happens with LeBron a lot recently in basketball. It's like, do you hang it up the crown? I mean, MJ is always going to be better in my opinion. I've debated people on this in the podcast before. Besides the point, do you hang it up like when you've done everything? Do you hang it up when the points start to get lower? Kipchoge is a good example now. Like, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think the guy's ever going to win another major. He was all the rage 5 years ago, but if he keeps running another 5 years, he'll probably still get top 10 finishes all the time. And so it's like, how do you, in your mind, balance those things of like, do you want to ride off into the top? Do you even think you can do that? How do you think about these things?
I don't, honestly. Like, I think when the time's right, I'll know if even hanging up, spikes, road shoes, whatever, super shoes is even like the answer. I don't know. Look at like Sarah Hall, Steph Bruce, Galen, like 39, crushed it in Chicago and had, unfortunately time away for injuries and stuff. For me also, if it stops becoming fun or I just need a beat, I'm not afraid to take that anymore. The beautiful thing about 2020 was that, I realized that there are so many other things in life that bring me joy. And when running might not be, it's okay to kind of lean into all of those other things. I don't know. It's funny because I just ran for about a year and a half during COVID, and it was fun. And of course I love getting out for a run, and I'll always do that. But then there's a point where I reach like in those just steady runs where I'm like, how can I test myself? And I think I'm just a true competitor. So I think um, it'll show itself in different ways. Like maybe I switch it up to trails for for a year, I don't know, after 2028, and like just try to see what I can do there. I don't know. Like my gut says I won't hang it up for a very long time, to be honest.
Really? So you
It
feel
just might
fresh, you
evolve.
feel new.
I feel so good. And it's so fun. Like I don't know how to explain race weekends right now because I obviously work full time. And when I get to go to races, I just feel like it's vacation. Even though I'm racing and I'm locked in and I'm behaving and, setting myself up to run well, it truly feels like a vacation weekend. Like Tokyo felt like a vacation. Boston felt like a vacation. All the sound running weekends felt so fun. And until that starts to change, like if I notice things where it's like, oh, it's like I have to do this instead of I get to do this, we'll try to figure out why that's happening. And then maybe it's just a matter of like, hey, let's take a month or 2 months and just train. And I'm hoping that like Brooks or the shoe company that I'm with, for as long as I will be, is open to having those conversations, because I think time away actually like who was I talking to? Oh, Maddie Alm. I did her podcast, and she was like, I like to visualize a slingshot, like kind of drawing back is a really good way to like propel forward. And that's literally the perfect way to look at it. Like a few steps back, taking time off, taking time away can just like do so much good. So I think, we'll weave some of those times in. Like right now, honestly, I needed a break. I've been running and racing pretty much consistently since Orlando. I didn't picture my like 2-week break away from running being like bed rest ridden and not, having good margaritas and not eating any sugar or bread, because unfortunately I couldn't. I just had to like eat very basic baby food to maintain sanity. So we're just taking our time. We're easing into training right now. Work is going to be crazy. I'll do some fun, smaller races and ways to see where I'm at. Yeah, life is all about taking that time too and building that in. We were just talking about that. You need a little
Yeah.
breaky poo. So yeah, we'll see. But no, the plan is to not 2028 is not it is not a like ending of any sorts. So we'll just see what it looks like.
I love it. In it for the long run. And it probably also helps to not put that pressure on
Yeah,
that year.
100%.
Yeah. Because if that was your final race or final year or final campaign, I imagine the nerves and the weight of a
Yeah,
race would
yeah,
almost make you
exactly.
crumble. It goes back to Coach Milt, your former coach, who has this
Best.
great principle, which is like, the best people race when they're loose and they're excited, and the people who don't race well are when they're really tight and anxious. And I imagine that if you had a final race that you knew about, or final season, not that it couldn't go well, but the chances of it going well with that sort of pressure to end
Mm-hmm.
on top, which any high level athlete reasonably would do, I feel
Yeah.
like would be a lot to handle.
Yeah. No, I agree. And look at like Matt Centro. Like Centro, kind of hangs up the spikes, and then it seems like his transition was more so like, oh, we're gonna pace and run longer and see what I can do there. And then he ends up running in Chicago and freaking crushing it. So
What did he run? I didn't see.
I remember looking at his time and I'm like, damn, he's just a little bit faster than me. So I think he was like 222 something,
Okay.
which is awesome. I think when you say you're permanently hanging something up, if it's for a reason that's like, hey, my body is just like, it's not happy doing this anymore, I thoroughly and genuinely don't enjoy it, that's totally okay. Like 100%, like do whatever's best for you and in your life and your general well-being. But like, it's okay for it to evolve. And I think having kind of like a permanent ending to something, or framing it that way in your brain is like, oh, but how could this look if I'm just doing it a different way, or fitting it into my life a little bit differently, or like moving it to a different burner. Like, let's put it on the back burner and still do it. But like, yeah. Um, yeah, it's okay. Evolution is good, change is good, but we'll see. It'd be really funny to like be able to look into a crystal ball and just see what it all looks like in like 5 to 10 years time. But
What's
yeah,
funny though is when you're going through something, a lot of times it makes no sense. But if you look back on your life, it kind of all makes sense. And as humans, I think we do a good job of connecting the dots looking back. But in
yeah,
the moment, it's like, what's going on? What am I doing? How am I going to survive? How am I going to get to my goals? It's like a
totally.
marathon training block where you had a bunch of hiccups and then you get to
Hmm.
race day and you still PR. And you're like, that didn't really make sense how I did it. But looking back, it also kind of did because that's just humans adapt and they evolve. And I think
Yeah,
your wisdom there actually applies a lot to high school athletes who didn't make D1, but
totally.
still love running. Because I think that's almost the most logical time to take a step back and reframe what running means to you. And then you can come back
Hmm.
to it in a way more holistic way where you can join a run club or you can start running marathons or road races or you can join the club team of your university or try to walk on. I find so many high schoolers try to it's like D1 or nothing. And it's like, I don't know if that's healthy.
Totally. And I have a few friends that are amazing on the track. And I think the track is, it can be so, it can get so tough if it's all you're doing, because it's like you're getting splits every lap. You have data points pretty much, exactly, unless the weather's weird here or there, but like you just have comparison points at like every point of your season. But I think the roads can be so good for track athletes, because it's like, hey, we're going to throw ourselves into a 6K or a 10K or an 8K and just like focus on competing and like like getting the best out of ourselves on that day, having some hills. Like, every course is different, every race. Like, I can run Boston every year for the next 8 years and it will be such a different race every time because of so many different reasons. And I think it's so good to mix it up. I've got one of my favorite people in my corner right now is he's technically a massage therapist, but that's like not the right way to explain him, but his name is George Alex. And um, I had to see him this week because my body's so messed up. And he was like, yeah, I think we need to do workouts on grass this year because we need to mix it up and it'd be really good for you. And his brain's always thinking about like, okay, we've done everything, we're looking good doing the things that we've been doing for this long, but it's like, how can we throw something new into the mix? It's not going to, be something so crazy for the body to adjust to. But, and it's funny because I like thoroughly hate running on grass. I love cross country, but I just like the grass for some reason. I just don't feel, poppy and smooth and strong. But it's fun. It's cool to throw things in like that where you're mixing it up or doing something a little bit out of the norm of what you've been doing, just so you're kind of like training the brain to adapt and you're adding a new stimulus in. And I think that's good for not only like high school athletes, young athletes, collegiate athletes. It's good in life too. So yeah, I think you can just apply that kind of across the board.
I do want to talk to you about some of your training. It fascinates me. Connor Mance, I think, is another example of someone he does do higher mileage, but
Yeah.
I think a similarity between you two is you kind of almost always seem ready and rebuke me if any of this isn't true because I don't want to say things that aren't true, but you always kind of seem ready to PR from like almost the mile to the marathon to some extent. Maybe not the mile, but I mean, for Connor, I mean, he was running like mid 330s in the 15. And then a few weeks
Yeah,
later, he was doing
crazy.
XYZ. And then he runs a marathon. And even this block, he
Mhm.
was like ripping road races at shorter distances. And then he PRs in the marathon. And I think how Ed Eyestone coaches him is like, we're always going to be ready, for any race at any time. And we're going to get generally fit.
Yep.
I coach one kid. He's definitely listening to this podcast. So shout out Ethan. And just crazy story. In high school, he was a soccer player, tennis player, and then kind of started to
Okay.
get into running. Within
Yeah.
a year of officially running, Jess, he ran 234, 1 year of running. And then, yeah,
Dang.
8 months later, he went 110.41 and a half. He was 20 at the time. And then ran 31.55 in the 10K after. And he just ran Chicago. He ran 230 which was short of our goal of 224. And a mistake I made, I only coach one person, it's him, just like as a friend. The mistake I made looking back and taking accountability is I feel like I just trained him for the marathon rather than like overall really general fitness. I think when he runs best is when he is like fit from the 5K to the marathon. What's your take on that? Where it's like, yeah, you could run 120 miles a week, but you might sacrifice a lot of the things that make you you in the process.
Yeah, well, first of all, Ethan, that's crushing. So good job. Dang. Yeah, no, I agree. I think, and I've had to do a huge perspective shift to the track because honestly, when I negotiated my contract, I was like, I do not make me touch the track. I hate the track. I don't want to race on the track. I was just honestly so scared of it because I had gotten so hurt in my first pro stint. But it wasn't because of the track. It was just because I was training in a way that I don't think was optimal for my body. And I was training with some of the best 1500 5K women like in the country. And I'm just not like, that's not my primary distance or like specialty. And I was just killing myself to like hang in these workouts, you know? So I think with the track, I just associated like injured track, like those two things for Jess go together. And I avoided it for so long. And I remember one of my first track workouts back, I was like, we're going to do one that we love. And I did like 16 to 20 by 400, like not at a crazy pace. And I was like, oh my God, that was so fun. And yeah, it was a lot of baby steps to like work the track back in. But for the marathon, like I don't do a ton of lifting. I do like very basic general strength, type exercises a few days a week, mostly body weight, or like I literally have a set of 8-pound dumbbells at home that I just do like, arm circuit and light core with and stuff like that. But with the track, like getting my body to run literally up to 4 or 5 miles in spikes and workouts has made me so strong from like the small muscles in my feet up to like finally using my glutes again and like not pulling from my back and engaging more of my core. Like these have all been things that I've noticed after getting back on the track and running fast and strong in spikes. So when I started, and George honestly was a huge part of why I've started to think about it this way. So I thought about track workouts as that, like we're going to get so much stronger, like muscularly, and just obviously the track just makes you strong. But then it started translating into like, oh, let's run a 10K and let's try to run a 5K. And then, I synced up with David and he's more of a strength based or more speed based too, like coming at it from both ends of the spectrum, but injects a ton of speed into my training. And it's been so good. Like having a fast, not even fast, but just being a really good solid 10K runner, even a 5K runner, it's like if you can build the base and the strength to get to the last 20 miles feeling okay in a marathon, and it's not going to happen every time, like that's going to come in so much handy at the end of the race. And I felt that like Boston rounding that last corner, I was like, holy crap, like I'm envisioning myself like on a track, like the last 400 meters on a track. I felt so strong. Tokyo was a different story because I was just so tired and my body was like depleted of everything. And I was just like, just get to the finish line. But like every other race, even New York, when I was kind of feeling, it was tough out there, the last 400 meters up that last hill in Central Park, I felt so strong. And I think it's because of the track racing. And I don't put a ton of pressure on myself for races. Like, yes, it's cool to say I've PR'd pretty much in every distance I've run in the last year. But I think it's because I'm going into those races like this is a means to an end. It's going to make me such a good marathoner. And I don't put a ton of pressure on myself for those track races, even though it's nerve-wracking, like trying to break the 31-minute barrier in a 10K and trying to get close to that 15 flat mark. But it's just like the cherry on top if that happens. It's not necessarily like do or die, but I think the track is it can be such a bigger tool than you think. And even if racing on the track isn't something that your heart is like screaming for, I think there's ways you can do that in training to get the same stimulus, not same, but close enough. And then who knows, like when you start seeing yourself ripping fast 200s and, like there was a workout up in Flag, I was running straight 29s after like 6 to 7 miles of work on the track. And I have never been able to do that. And I'm 33. So like if you're listening to this and you're, mid to late 20s and like you can work up to running some really fast, like 150s, 200s, 400s, and it's really fun to run fast. And then you just kind of, you just that's like the tip of the iceberg and you want a little bit more. So yeah, I love it. I've learned to love it. And 3 years ago, I absolutely hated it. So that would be fun to go back in time and say, hey, Jess, you're going to run the 5K and the 10K. And my goal for this upcoming track season on the indoor track, I would love to run a fast 3K or mile. So I think my mile PR is 4:38 from like eons ago. So that's one of my goals for this next year is to just like get on the Boston track or somewhere and just run a fast mile.
Of course, it's case by case, athlete by athlete, but do you think it's worth trading some mileage for the marathon to tap into some of the faster paces, some of the faster workouts? And what were some of those specific sessions like for you, just to give some awareness to the listener?
That's a really good question. For me personally, I do not think going out for a 4-mile slog in the afternoon with pretty poor form and just like shuffling along, that is not going to do my body any justice. Instead, I do opt for like, I don't know if I'm like trading it. I just know that like I'd be sacrificing some of my speed and being able to tap into that if I injected like an additional 15 miles of that in my week. So we really focus on like quality days or super quality. I actually only do one workout a week. So I work out Wednesdays and then most of my long runs are fairly high quality. There's always some work in there. So I have 2 quality days, but there are 2 to 3 days of like strides or hill sprints. So I'm kind of tapping into that a little bit, like for, 4 times a week, which I think is super helpful. And yeah, I mean, for me, yes, I think I focus more on quality over quantity. Maybe this year I'll kind of weave in a little bit more cross training. I do think my ceiling's a little bit higher now because I knock on wood, have been healthy for 3 years now. So I think if I wanted to get on the bike or do something for a double, I could. But do I think I like need it to podium at a world major, make another world team, or make the team in 2028? No. And then as far as like specific sessions, I think one of the things going into this next year that David and I have chatted about, I do a lot of like 10K work where, I'm running 10K pace down to 5K pace within a workout, 800s, miles, Ks, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, I'll run really fast 200s, 300s. But I think I need to do a lot more of like pace oscillation. So like we'll go back and forth between, like gear shifting. Where we're doing 10K, 5K work, but then maybe in the middle of the workout, we're doing some fast 4s or some fast 2s. So I think a lot of my workouts up until now have been like 800s, 600s, Ks, miles at 10K faster pace. And then we do like fast stuff at the end. But I think we're going to start weaving more into the middle of my workouts because I think that's one thing, especially in the 10K, that, if I want to stay competitive in the 10K, I just need to do. Like Elise and Carissa, like they can just freaking drop like crazy lap and then just keep going. And I don't have that. Like I knew if it went out slow these past few years that I wouldn't be on the team. So yeah, that's something I might test out this next year, which I think if you feel yourself kind of like not even plateauing, but like, oh, hey, I think there's another level I could reach. Like maybe look at your training and be like, okay, are we just practicing working or just running, I hate to say like steady for 10K pace, but like consistently 10K or a little bit faster every workout. Maybe like talk to your coach or think about that, practicing that gear shifting, because in a marathon, it still translates. Like there's a point where in Boston, I think we were running like 15:20s or 15:20 mid for the first few miles. And then some of the African athletes are so good at it. They just injected like a 5:06 mile, like within the first 10K. And I just was like, I can't do that this early. But maybe if I do that more now, like that won't scare me as much. And then it's like, okay, then the lead pack, backs off again to the 520s and I can hang. So yeah, that's one thing we're looking at for next year, which sounds hard. And I don't love it, but I know I have to do it.
Yeah, for sure. For those listening, training for a marathon, what's one workout they should try out on the faster end? We'll call it the Jess McClain special.
Honestly, so many of my workouts. Okay, this is one crazy thing. I have not ever run a tempo in my marathon builds longer than 5 miles, maybe, like straight.
Wow.
I've never done a 10-mile tempo. I've never done a 12-mile tempo. Like I've done broken up. I'll do like 3 by 3 miles in a long run. I'll do, or 3 by 4 miles working up to that. I'll do 4, 3, 2, 1 where I'm getting faster. I do love alternating. I'll do one of my marathon workouts that I do really like is, I'll do a warm up 3 miles at marathon into 1 mile at 10K. And then mile easy, 2 miles at marathon into 1 mile at 10K, mile easy, 1 mile at marathon into 1 mile 10K. So it's kind of injecting what we were just talking about. Shifting between marathon pace and 10K pace within sets in a workout. I think that made me super strong. It was really hard. And then you can also alternate where I did this in Flagstaff. I did it both ways where you're starting with the 10K mile into marathon pace, which is really, really hard because you just feel like your body's working so hard early on at the beginning of those reps. So, and you're kind of, I don't know if you're kind of working through lactic that early in a workout, but you just feel like your body's working hard at the 10K pace. And then, once you get to the marathon pace, you're like, okay, this is still hard. The first few miles of that, your heart rate's still high. I love those workouts, after they're done. No, but I think they were one part of my training that was really, really tough to do, but made me a lot stronger for this last build.
I love it. Well, I personally will not be attempting that anytime soon, but if you're a listener out there who wants to put yourself through a pain cave, there's the Jess McClain special. DM me if you try it and survive. Jess, final serious question for you. What's the final takeaway message you want to leave with the audience today?
Oh my gosh. I think it's kind of the same thing I've always preached a little bit, where it's, I made this analogy too the other day where, yes, relationships should be like, you should put work into them, but they shouldn't feel like work to some extent. Like it shouldn't feel hard to be with a person that you're with. And when I met Connor, that was 100% true and still is. And we've almost been married for 4 years together, for even longer than that. It's honestly the same thing with running. Like when you find the right recipe for you, that not only leads to success, like success is great, but like that leads to like happiness and joy and leaning in with more curiosity versus fear. Like don't stray for that and stand up for it. I think if you're, a pro runner trying to find a contract or a team or a company to work with, like don't change yourself to fit the mold that's there. Same with like finding the right college team, same with finding a high school coach. And it's so hard to know the younger you are because you spend so much time as you grow as an athlete and a person, like knowing, what makes you tick and what makes you. But my advice is to just like do whatever you can to like ensure that you're going to, one, be healthy, but two, like enjoy the process and just and be happy doing it. Like there's always going to be the hard days and the days where you're like, even today, I set my alarm for like 5:45 to run before work, and it's pitch black now early in Phoenix, and I just like I'm not running. I'm going to run during lunch. There's going to be days where you're just like meh, like but overall you should love it. So just really pay attention to what your body is telling you. When the engine light's on, when the flags go up, like really figure out what's going on and stay true to you. Honestly, I think that's my main focus and my goal now, and surround yourself with people that will help you do just that and that uplift you and are in your corner. Yeah, I think that's what I'd say.
Great words. Love them. Final question for you. We're fall season. What's Jess McClain's favorite aspect of fall, whether it's the leaves or a specific drink or a specific spot or pumpkins or some movie? What's like your fall list? What's your number one on the fall list?
I mean, right now it's Arizona weather. We just turned, like, it was still kind of 90 last week, and now we're in low 80s, high 70s, and it is the absolute best. It's like 50s in the morning. Perfect for, a light long sleeve that you can shed mid-run for sports bra weather still. And then right now, Trader Joe's has some awesome like fall things that you can zhuzh up your coffees with. So I got like all their fall flavored cold foams and bourbon vanilla syrup and maple butter. So I look forward to making my latte every morning. That's what makes me happy. Yeah.
Love it. Well, Jess, thank you as always for taking the time to chop it up with me. I love our conversations because they feel like just that. They don't feel like a podcast. They feel like a conversation. And so thank you for all the wisdom, all the insights, all the marathon workouts, the fall recommendations, everything. And best of luck with this next chapter.
Oh, thanks, Dominic. You're crushing it. I'm looking forward to see what the end of Q4 brings you. And then I hope you get a little bit of a break sometime soon. But thanks so much for having me on.